Are you an entrepreneur or a business person? Now, this question is key to knowing at what point in your professional life you are if you've decided to take the path of being on your own and to take on projects in which you're going to be creating a product or a service. Now, in this YouTube or podcast channel, if you listen to the audio, I dedicate myself to mentally program you for success. So in this episode, I'm going to clarify the mentality that is required to undertake a new project, but also that you know when you can scale. My name is Rojas Liscano. I'm an international career and talent development coach. And in my practice, I accompany many entrepreneurs and also people who are already embarked in a new venture and they want to go further. And I can guarantee you that although there are many things in common between being an entrepreneur and becoming a business person, there is also a lot of the mentality and the attitude that has to change in order to move on to the next stage. And this, by the way, is also that applies to new bosses and new managers who are listening to this episode, and you're going to see why in a moment. Now, let's start with the first thing. What is entrepreneurship? Now, etymologically speaking, the term comes from the French entrepreneur, and this means to start something. To start a new project or something new that includes necessarily some level of difficulty. That is why in order to undertake successfully, you need to be daring. You need to know how to take risk, to anticipate, and especially you need to be ready for anything. When we launch ourselves into a new project, especially if we create a company or if you create an activity and if you sell a product, an attitude that is worth goal is the adaptability, which leads us to be able to perform many tasks, whether you are good or not necessarily super good at them. Now, why is this? Because in general, when you start a business, there is this matter of time and budget that is limited, which it makes us, in most of the cases, for most of the entrepreneurs out there, we become multitasking. We have to develop our services, do the finances, the marketing, the taxation, and many of the entrepreneurs out there are also the product or the service themselves. Now, this is mentally and emotionally insane. But if you've created the right momentum and you are inspired by what you're doing, this can be done up to a certain point. Now, at this moment, right now, the mental key is endurance. And to try as much as possible not to label yourself. So for instance, if you are an application developer and you say to yourself, I'm not a marketeer, I'm not an accountant, you immediately set a limit to the activities that are necessary to implement so that you launch yourself correctly, and above all, that you know your market, you know your clients, and you know specifically how to position yourself. Now, although it's true in the previous example that perhaps your point or your best point is to develop applications. Your best skill is to develop application. Now, it is important that you open yourself up to trying to position yourself as a product or a service. And for this, you need to learn a little bit of marketing, finance, and many other topics. Now, of course, the best thing will always be to have a team, to have experts on the subject to support you and to delegate to those experts as much as possible. But let's be honest, that costs money and it's not always possible for everybody or everyone who would like to start. And it doesn't have to be an impediment either, okay? On the path of entrepreneurship, you learn a lot. And remember that if you are facing some difficulties, that is exactly because you are undertaking. So the other mentality, or I would say the other key to this mental programming for success is that entrepreneur has to know how to welcome these difficulties and always be willing to learn, because trial and error is the basis of this path. Now, once you get past this and you already know your market, the next key to success is resilience and determination, because it's not because you have a plan that you're taking care of everything and that you're on top of everything that this plan is necessarily going to work. You have to try, adjust, and restart if necessary. And believe me, it will be necessary to restart. Now, this is where the entrepreneurial mindset is really put to test. Now, what happens when you already establish yourself as an entrepreneur and you want to move on to the next stage? This is where the entrepreneur stops being an entrepreneur and becomes a business person. And what is the difference? Well, that you no longer have to do everything yourself. That is, it is time to scale. Now, in order to scale, you have to know how to let go. Now, a common mistake made by new managers, and which is also something that we see a lot in entrepreneurs who want to grow, is that they think that they are the only ones capable of doing things. They are the most qualified people and no one knows how to do things like they do them. It is this mindset and this attitude that prevents you from growing. So if you feel familiar with this, it is time to make it a little bit more flexible. Now, to be a business person, you have to activate the mentality of a manager, of a director. It is no longer you who produces everything. You don't have to be the service. You don't have to do the marketing. You don't have to do the finances anymore. Now, if you are your own final product or service, but if you want to scale, you also have to know how to identify talents that can support you or even be complementary to what you do. Because otherwise you will always be trapped in this time and money trap. While you're present, you earn money. But if you stop being present, there's no cash flow. That means that you don't have a business there. What you have is a professional practice, which is not a bad thing, but it really doesn't allow you to scale. So the first key to the businessman or the businesswoman mentality, which is the opposite to that of the entrepreneur, is to lean on the other or the one who knows, to delegate and to let go. And dedicate yourself to what you do best, to what you love to do the best, okay? It means constituting a team of experts, either employees or external freelancers who support you from time to time or for very specific things. Now, if you want to scale, you really have to make this system bigger. Now, the second mental key for successful businesswomen and businessmen is to stop calling yourself an entrepreneur. If you do this by concept, you will always be starting something and starting with difficulties. Now, you're no longer only an entrepreneur. You're a businessman or a businesswoman, a leader, a coordinator of something that is no longer a project. It is a materialized reality. There is a product or service with a well-identified client and you're ready to grow. Now, there you have it, the first mental keys to undertake and scale. If you like any of these topics and you want to know more, you know what you have to do. Subscribe to this YouTube channel or to the podcast channel. I really love this topic so much, and I can tell you I will continue developing this and more material to help those of you who would like to start a project, or maybe you are already into something and you want to grow in your niche. So don't miss any of this. Now, for the moment, I'll send you a big kiss and I'll see you in another episode for more on programming your mind for success.